now by Karima Brown, political analyst and host of The Fix here on ENCA. Karima, just listening to those bites, I actually want to start with what he said about Zandile Gumede. I'm finding it a little underwhelming. I mean, he says it's created disquiet and we're going to deal with it with the structures. Do you think that's a sufficient answer for the South African public that is furious at the moment?
Not at all, Sally. I think that the answer that is historically and traditionally given by senior ANC officials about their own public representatives in public office in the state who stand accused, as is the case with Ms. Zandile Gumede, of charges of corruption. These are not allegations. She's facing criminal charges, is a big issue. And the president should have responded not as a member of the African National Congress, but as the president of South Africa, because he was in the National Assembly, not as the president of the ANC at an NEC meeting, which is happening over the weekend. So he should have responded to the matter as the president of the country, and the answer that the party will sort out was inappropriate and simply insufficient to deal with the question. It's also blurring questions of accountability between party and state, because in as much as the ANC has every right to go through its organizational procedures, the provincial legislature of the country in KwaZulu-Natal has an obligation to ensure that people who are in fact criminally charged shouldn't be serving as public representatives. It casts aspersions on her fitness. So insufficient and a missed opportunity there on the part of the state president of the country.
And, you know, there's a lot of people saying, oh, this weekend at the NEC, the president must go for broke. I'm just wondering if he can and if he will. Certainly he can reshuffle his cabinet as president of the country. But as president of the ANC, how much leverage does he have with a party that is very divided, that if he does go for broke, he may actually just break the party?
Sally, I think when we look at what the president of the country can do as party president of the governing party, it's important to put on different lenses, because remember, the ANC is deeply divided, as you've rightly said. So if you look at the ANC president, Ramaphosa, issuing that impassioned letter last Sunday to members of the ANC, you have to then look at a series of events that preceded that letter and what has happened subsequently. So preceding the letter of the president on Sunday, and please indulge me here, Sally, was a virtual rally led by civil society and social justice movements under the auspices of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, who used the opportunity of the late Stalwart's birthday to call on the government to act decisively. The Sunday, the ANC president issues this letter. Now, he does this with his back against the wall, as you say, in a divided party. Subsequent to that, we have the COSATU Central Executive Committee meeting, who comes out and says that the president needs to do more than just write letters, that he needs to act. Subsequent to that, you have the South African Communist Party coming out in KwaZulu-Natal, specifically saying that they were not consulted about Zandile Gumede. And then you also have the National Working Committee who met, and they, of course, the kind of kitchen cabinet, if you like, of the ANC before this special NEC meeting that has been convened at the weekend. And then you have a series of meetings both inside the state, in state institutions, as well as law enforcement agencies, that gives you the sense that there is a build-up towards the special meeting. And then, of course, we have the ANC Secretary General, often seen as the nemesis of the president of the ANC, Ace Magashule, denying that he has received a letter from the party's integrity committee. Now, we just saw earlier our political editor, Vuyo Mboko, saying that according to Pule Mabe, the spokesperson, Mr. Magashule, hasn't received that letter. I have it on good authority from officials inside the Tule House that that letter was emailed to the Secretary General's PA as well as his office manager. And I would caution, Sally, our viewers at this stage to put a lot of stock by what Mr. Mabe has said. Remember, this is the same spokesperson that just 2 days ago issued a statement lashing Trevor Manuel and then having to retract. So there's a lot of gamemanship that's going on ahead of this meeting. But I think President Ramaphosa is beginning to gear up and is beginning to stack the deck in such a way that he will be empowered over the weekend, Sally.
It's such an interesting one, because I think that exactly the issues you've spoken around, with Pule Mabe saying, no, there's not, that speaks to the divisions within the party. The president, you know, and you know much more about how the NEC works. My understanding is it works by consensus. How do you reach consensus in a divided party? Does the president get the final vote? Or could he be completely overruled if he wants to make some firm decisions this weekend? And you know the party, you understand the party. What do you actually think is going to happen?
The reason why I'm smiling is because I can almost take my mind back to, you know, when the first motion of no confidence was brought inside the NEC against former President Jacob Zuma. And we were almost asking the same question, just with different names. And remember, at that time, Jacob Zuma was very strong in the party. And it took something like 3 pushes inside the party, the vote in Parliament, and a whole series of events, including mass action, that eventually toppled Zuma at the peak of his power, remember? And I think we're pretty much in a similar situation with different actors here. So you are absolutely right, Sally. It's consensus that rules. No vote happens in the ANC. But the president has a party resolution that was taken at Nasrec that every faction has to abide by, which is that if you are involved or alleged to be involved in serious allegations of corruption, you must fall on your sword, you must step aside. And Jesse Duarte, in an interview with the public broadcaster following that NWC meeting, underlined that and said whether the ANC likes it or not, whether in whatever faction, and it's important that we note that it's the Deputy Secretary General who wasn't in Cyril Ramaphosa's faction going to Nasrec, making this point, saying that all members of the African National Congress will have to abide. And she was making that point in relation to the position of Zandile Gumede, as well as other members of the African National Congress, including the Secretary General of the party, who, of course, famously said that he wouldn't step aside. So the president has a national conference resolution. Not even the NEC can overturn that. So he's got ammunition to go into that meeting. The problem, of course, is that many people in the NEC stands accused of corruption. So they are going to put a fight up. Right. And he said as much in Parliament this afternoon. He said the state capture forces are going to fight back, and I think they will. The point is he will have to muster the strength in the party and to do it.
Karima, do you think he will? You know, he's known as such a skilled negotiator, someone who absolutely knows when to have the right conversations. People are saying, he doesn't know when to act. Yeah. Does he know how to time and to wait for that moment of critical mass? Will he act? Do you expect him to act?
You know, politics is the art of what is possible, Sally. So the question that you're putting is absolutely critical to understanding it. So if you look at COSATU, it is basically said that it will go on a national strike against corruption if he doesn't act. So the president doesn't just have the ANC to think about. He has the alliance to think about. He doesn't just have the ANC NEC to think about. He has social justice organizations to think about. And he said this afternoon in Parliament that he does not place the ANC's interest above the interest of the country. He was emphatic. He told the leader of the Freedom Front Plus, Mr. Groenewald, that he will never place the party's interest above that of the country. When he became president, he swore an oath to the people and not to the party. And I think that is what South Africans need to hold on to, because that was the reason that Cyril Ramaphosa saw through the removal of Jacob Zuma when he was president of the country, and Cyril Ramaphosa had just been elected president of the party. And I think he's going to use those tools to fight a very tough battle inside that all-important special NEC meeting starting tomorrow.